Well, good afternoon, everyone. It is the 1st of June, and we are kicking off with Healthy Pizza with Natasha from Thyme in the Kitchen. It is a gorgeous sunny day out there, so I am pretty sure there's lots of people out and about having fun. We're going to demonstrate the pizza making in any case, so when you get to watch this, we really do hope that you will cook along with Natasha. So Natasha, how are you doing today?
I'm good, thanks, Shanas. How are you?
Yeah, really well. Just trying to keep the airflow circulating because it's
It's a beautifully hot day, and I'm sure everyone's out and about, exploring the UK, enjoying being out of lockdown. So
that's it. And having ice cream and all of that. But hey, when they come to their dinner time, they're going to look for something substantial.
yeah.
So we're going to watch you do your demo of healthy pizza, but along the way, if you can tell us a little bit about why certain ingredients are healthy or healthier, because I think we all think, oh, it's pizza, it can't be healthy. And I know we'll send around the recipe card and all of that, but it'd be really nice just to hear a little bit about why you've chosen the ingredients you have and what the health benefits are.
Sure, of course. So hi everyone, my name is Natasha, and I am a chef, and I run a company called Thyme in the Kitchen, and I teach lots of different types of cooking classes, and I teach adults, both adults and kids. And I often teach this recipe that we're going to be making today with kids, with a little bit of variation sometimes. But basically today we're going to make a quicker homemade pizza dough recipe, which still has yeast in it, but we don't, and we're using spelt flour, which still has gluten in it, but it's a little bit lower in gluten than normal all-purpose flour. And we are going to just be making this and let it sit for about 10-15 minutes. On a normal pizza dough recipe, you need to kind of let it rest for a long period of time. So this is why this is a quicker pizza dough recipe. So, and we're going to also be using a lot of kind of vegetables to top our pizza, some healthier ingredients, which make it, this delicious kind of recipe that most people love a little bit healthier. And by making it at home, that's already kind of making it healthier too than what you would buy in the shops or in the grocery stores. So, shall we get started?
Let's go for it. Brilliant. Sounds great. And just to say that if people want to use an all-purpose flour or a different flour, they can absolutely do this same method, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to be using what's called spelt flour today. So spelt is an ancient grain, and I'm sort of using a white spelt flour. And spelt is, like I said, an ancient grain, and it still has gluten in it. So if you have a gluten intolerance, then this wouldn't be the flour to use. But it's got a lower gluten content, so it's a little bit easier on digestion. However, again, I say if you are gluten intolerant or prefer to use gluten-free flour, that's not the flour to use. I think Shanaz, you mentioned that you were going to try this using Duff's Farm gluten-free strong bread flour. Is that right?
Yes.
And Duff's Farm has some great flour, so I think that would be a good flour to try. I've never tried that with this recipe, but Shanaz, let me know how that works out for you.
Oh, I will.
Yeah, because Duff's Farm gluten-free flour has some xanthan gum in it, so that could help kind of bind it. And what I was telling Shanaz earlier is that if you do use it, it might be a bit more fiddly, but you can kind of use your hands to manipulate the dough into place so that you can still create a nice crust for your pizza. Okay, let's get started. So we'll go over the ingredients first for the dough that we need. So in this bowl here, I have 400 grams of spelt flour. Now I usually measure in grams, and I usually measure on a scale just because that's my preferred method of weighing things. But I know that some people might not have scales and may be using measuring cups. So if you are, this is about 3 cups of flour. So it's 400 grams of flour, about 3 cups of flour. And then I've also got a teaspoon of salt in here. So I've already put that directly into my flour, but if you want to add in a teaspoon of salt into that. And then I'm also using some yeast, some quick yeast that you put directly into the flour mixture, and you don't have to glue them in water. So I have already measured out 7 grams of that. So I'm going to put that directly into my flour. And I don't need to kind of bloom that in water or anything like that. So I'm just going to kind of mix that in. Because I've already added my salt and mixed that through, I don't have to worry about the yeast having contact with the salt. Because normally when you're making bread or pizza or anything that requires yeast, you don't really want it to come into contact with salt because that can kill the yeast, so then you won't have your dough rise. Okay, and so what else do we need for our dough? We need some water. So here I have about 225 mils of water, which is just about a cup of water. Now with this dough, if you see that it's too wet, you can add, it's it's kind of too sticky, then you can add a tiny bit more flour. If you're seeing that it's too dry, it is really hot outside, so remember that the temperature outside and in your kitchen will affect how much moisture your dough needs. So if you're seeing that it's really too dry and it's not coming together, then you can add a tiny bit more flour. We're also going to add some honey and some oil to this. I'm adding honey. You could always add sugar. I like the kind of flavor of honey that it gives to the dough. And I think it's a little bit healthier, but you could always add sugar or maple syrup if you're trying to keep this, vegan. So I'm going to add that in. I'm going to add in my water. So that's 225 mils of water, or about a cup. And I'm also going to add in a teaspoon of honey and then 2 tablespoons of olive oil.
I have never seen people put honey in a pizza.
Yeah, well, we add a little bit of sugar to a pizza. So I'm just putting in, it just kind of balances out the flavor. You don't need to put in any sugar at all. But I just find it gives it a nice texture, and especially because the flour is a little bit harder, so it kind of gives it a little bit more depth. And then 2 tablespoons of olive oil. And I'm just using kind of my own kitchen tablespoon. If you have a measuring tablespoon, that would work too. So I have some rosemary infused oil here that I'm using, which also gives the pizza a little bit of a nice flavor. So you could do that too. You could add some dried herbs in here as well to give it some more flavor and to boost the kind of herby nutritional value. I have some infused oil. So what you can do is, if you don't like to use your hands, you can use a spoon to kind of bring the dough together. So just bring the dough together like that. And then when it kind of comes together in sort of a doughy mass, then you can kind of go in there with your hands to kind of bring it together. And I probably will need a little bit more. I can already see that I probably will need a little bit more water in mine because it is quite hot in my kitchen. So I'm just going in with my hands, or maybe not actually, it's coming together. And I'm just using my hands to sort of bring it together. And I'm just using the palm of my hands to kind of bring and push the dough down and sort of get all the kind of floury bits into the bowl.
Lovely, and it's really cleaning a bowl out, so it's it's coming together so nicely.
Yeah, so I think I will actually add a tiny bit more water in here. Bring this together to see. But you really kind of want to clean, as you said, you just want to kind of clean the sides of the bowl so all the kind of bits are of flour incorporated. I'm going to get a tiny bit more water.
And if I was doing it with my gluten-free flour, I might just bring it together with a spoon, and I might not put my hands in at all. I might just
absolutely. You don't need to use your hands. So I'm just kind of bringing that together, and then have some extra, keep some extra flour or even some semolina flour on the side for when we're going to roll it out later. Because if your dough is, a little bit too sticky, and you're going to need some flour to sort of do that. So now my dough has kind of come together. You can see it's got most of the flour and everything from the sides. So I'm going to take it out, and I'm going to kind of knead it a little bit for a couple of minutes. You can see it's kind of really soft. And we're not going to work this dough too much. There.
It seems very pliable, yes.
Yeah, it's very soft. This is a great recipe for a quick dough. And you could leave this to rise for a little bit longer. Like we're gonna leave it for, because I want to show you how to make a quick pizza dough. But you could always leave this to rise in your bowl slowly for like an hour. If you have other things to do, you can make this dough and go and do some other things. Have a play in the garden, go to the park, things like that. So you can see it's kind of like a smooth ball.
Lovely.
And it's kind of come together nicely. And because it's quite warm, I did need to use a little bit of flour, a little bit more water, but that's fine. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the same bowl, and I'm just going to add a tiny bit of oil in there so that the dough doesn't stick. Just like a drizzle. You don't need much. And just kind of coat the bottom of the bowl. And then you can just put that in there. And normally, I'm just going to get a towel. Normally what I would do is I would put it in my shoe closet with shoe room with where my boiler is to kind of give it some warmth to kind of rise a little bit. But because it's so warm in my kitchen and outside, I don't actually do that. So I'm just going to pop it on the side there and let that rise for a few minutes. And I'm going to give my hands a wash. And then just give my board a little more of a wipe, keep everything a bit clean. So this is a great, and I think what we were trying to do is also, if you are making this with the kids, get them really involved in this recipe, let them get their hands in there, play with the dough, really kind of get involved in there. And also, if you're making this and you want to go grocery shopping, try and get them to pick out some healthier ingredients, pick out some veg that they like, that they might want to put a little bit onto the pizza, get them involved in, if they're used to just eating sort of, for years, my son would just eat margarita pizza.
Yes.
Now he really enjoys having things like mushrooms or broccoli, some peas sometimes on pizza. So you can kind of, bring in the vegetables that they like and add that onto the pizza. So you're happy that they're getting some nutrition. And enjoying their, their favorite meal, but also you're happy that they're getting some nutrition to it. And you can add in herbs. I have some basil here and some broccoli, and I also have some mushrooms, which we can add to it, which we'll do later. And I also have a little bit of ground beef that I sort of cooked a little bit earlier to add some protein to the pizza. So that's what we're going to use. So I have those things for the pizza, and I have some Parmesan cheese. And I also in the fridge have some balls of mozzarella cheese. This is freshly grated Parmesan. I just grated this before the class. And I like to use Parmesan cheese rather than, cheddar or grated mozzarella. Try not to, I know it's easier, but try, when we're talking about kind of using things to boost our nutrition and healthier ingredients, try not to buy cheeses that are already grated. So pre-grated mozzarella, or pre-grated cheddar. I know we all, are short on time, and I'm a mom too, and so I get it. But it just makes such a difference if you buy even just fresh Parmesan cheese and grate it yourself. And I prefer to use Parmesan cheese on pizza rather than mozzarella, grated mozzarella or cheddar, just because I think it's got a better flavor and I like the taste. And I also use, which I'll get out of the fridge, is some mozzarella balls that'll kind of tear up and put on the pizza on the top. And then we're going to make something else that really makes a difference to the kind of healthiness of the pizza at home is making a homemade tomato sauce. Now I know in the stores, in the grocery stores, you can buy some, tomato sauce that's already pre-made. And some of them are not so bad, actually. Some of them are pretty good. And but just be a bit conscious of what you're buying in the grocery store, that it doesn't have too much added sugar. If you are going to buy it, make sure you can get it from kind of, a local shop where it's good quality. But also this recipe is really quick to make. And it's a cold tomato sauce. You don't have to pre-cook it. You can pre-cook it and let it cool down, but you can also just kind of do this cold. So that's what we're going to do today. So I use this is the brand that I use, which I think is quite good. Obviously, if you can get like some San Marzano, like Italian, beautiful tomatoes, if you have a local Italian shop near you that gets their ingredients from Italy, I'm sure you can find some beautiful tomatoes there. It is tomato season, so you can kind of make, you know, your own kind of tomato sauce and puree that. So I'm going to use this one, and it's plum tomatoes. So I'm just going to open that while our dough is resting. We can do this, and we can just add that to our bowl. And then I'm going to add a little bit of oregano, so about a teaspoon of dried oregano. So add that into it. And then I'm also here, I have 3 cloves of garlic. You can put a little bit less if you wanted to. I really like garlic. So here's like 3 cloves for me, which is about, you know, a good, nice teaspoon.
Yes.
So added that in. And just gonna mix that in. And I'm also gonna add in some salt and pepper. So I'm gonna season it really nicely and add a really good amount of salt and pepper to give it some body.
Beautiful. And plum tomatoes rather than cherry tomatoes, right?
Yeah, I just like the taste of plum tomatoes and the texture rather than the chopped tomatoes. I find like the already chopped tomatoes are harder to break down.
Yes.
And with plum tomatoes, you can kind of just, they kind of just work better. You could also use passata if you like. I'm adding a lot of pepper in here as well, a good amount of pepper. And then the other thing that you may not use or might not be familiar with putting in a tomato sauce is I put a bit of balsamic because tomatoes are a bit acidic. And unless you have like amazing tomatoes from Italy, you don't need this, but I add a little bit of it in to just kind of lighten the acidity. You could also use, again, honey. You don't have to use balsamic. And I'm just going to be going with my hands. I'm going to squish everything together, but obviously you don't need to. You can kind of just squish the tomatoes together, squish everything together.
Amazing. Nice texture.
All the flavors. You could do this with a spoon, obviously, or a fork, or a potato masher. And not to get any tomato sauce onto my clothes. And my hands are clean. So doing that. And I'm going to leave it a tiny bit chunky because it's nice to have your tomato sauce a little bit chunky. You can also make it really smooth and puree it in like, you know, like a Magimix or a food processor. I'm just going to give my hands a wash. Or in a NutriBullet, which would be really quick. So yes, that's your tomato sauce, and you can taste it if you like and see if it needs any more salt and pepper. You could also add a little bit of Parmesan cheese into that if you wanted to. So that's our tomato sauce. I'm just going to get a few things out of the way, and you can leave that aside.
That was literally just like 2 minutes, not even, to just kind of get ready. Amazing.
Yeah, so from start to finish, you can kind of, you can do this in like less than an hour, or even, with the dough and everything. So, you could do this, or you could do it in stages throughout the afternoon. You could make your tomato sauce in the morning and just leave it in the fridge. So, you can kind of make use of your time, cut your vegetables in advance. So we're going to leave that aside. What I am going to do now is I'm going to turn on my oven. So with pizza, you want your oven to be really, really hot before you put your pizza in. So I'm going to preheat my oven at 240. And I'm just going to get that hot. I have a pizza stone here, which I use. An oven tray. So I have a pizza stone here. You can use an oven tray, or if you have a pizza, a pizza wheel or whatever, you can use that as well. And I'm going to put that in the oven to get hot as well. So it's preheated, and then I can just kind of put my pizza on that when it's really, really hot and I'm ready to put that in. So my oven is just preheating. And then, so that's our dough done. That's our tomato sauce done. Like I said, you can cook this tomato sauce if you want to.
Yes.
Kind of cook the garlic out with some olive oil, add in the tomato sauce. You can, cook that out for a little bit longer to kind of build up the flavor if you want, but you don't have to. Again,
Yeah.
what you can do is I have some basil here. You can chop some fresh basil and add that into the sauce right now as well. Maybe I might do that as well. Get some basil here. This is basil. This basil is from. It's really lovely. This basil is from Marks and Spencer's. They have some beautiful organic veg.
Yeah, and I know that basil is a natural kind of support to kind of reduce stress. Like it's just the scent of it is so lovely, and then the
exactly. So I'm just gonna bring that together and kind of finally chop that in, and then just put some. I don't know. Yeah, you can see me. So I'm just kind of chopping that. And then I'll just pop that and mix that into the sauce as well.
Beautiful.
And then you can add, when you're baking, just before your pizza is almost done, you can also add some fresh leaves of basil to your pizza. It's great to use also, like, if the kids like it, to add some herbs on your pizza, in your tomato sauce. Sometimes they don't even see it. I got a bit of tomato sauce on my nose. Yeah, so you just kind of let that, and then just let that sit for a few minutes. I know some people say not to use the stems, but I'm going to pop the stems in there too.
Yeah, gosh, I use everything.
I always use the stem on all my herbs. I use even when I'm doing coriander or parsley, I always use the stems. Obviously, if it's rosemary or something, which is a bit more tough, tougher herbs, then I won't. But so just mix that in. And keep that aside. And then in terms of vegetables, I was showing a bit earlier. So we have some vegetables here. Just some windows have popped up on my screen. I'm just going to close those. So I have some broccoli here, which I like to use. My son loves broccoli. Broccoli, if there's any vegetable that your kids like, and it's broccoli, it's amazing. I mean, broccoli is so good for you. It's got so many, nutritional benefits to it. So many. It's such a great antioxidant. It's got amazing vitamins and minerals in it. And if there's anything that kids will, most kids do like broccoli, and if they do, make use of it. And I have some mushrooms here. Mushrooms are great to add onto pizza. If your kids like that, that's great. You can add extra tomatoes, like cherry tomatoes, onto your pizza. I can also put a little bit of basil on top. And then I have some I pre-cooked earlier, some beef mince with just a little bit of salt and pepper and a little bit more dried oregano to it. So we have those that we can add to the pizza. So we'll keep that aside, and I've already chopped those, but you can add anything. You could add olives if you like olives. You could add, what else? Peppers. Anything.
And lots of different bell peppers, sweet corn.
Peas.
Yeah. Beautiful. And what about the fact that they maybe each have slightly different cooking times? It doesn't really matter because it's...
I don't think so. You could maybe blanch your broccoli beforehand. But I don't know, when I put them on the pizza, I'll break them up quite small anyways. Exactly. So they'll cook pretty fast. And even the mushrooms and stuff, it's nice to have your vegetables. The less you cook your vegetables, the better it is anyways. The better nutritional value it retains. So it's okay if it has a little bit of crunch because you get a variety of texture. But this will be, the pizza will be in the oven for about 15 minutes, so it will cook nicely. The only thing is don't add the basil in right away because it will wilt quite a bit. So to keep it sort of more fresh and things like that. So those are the vegetables that I'm going to use, but you can use kind of any ingredients you want. You could even use, prawns, if you wanted to do prawns. I love prawns on a pizza. And if you were to use prawns, I would sort of just keep that simple and just do some Parmesan cheese, some tomato sauce, a bit of herbs and some prawns. That's really good. Fish is always very good in terms of health-wise. Just making sure that if you're buying any kind of meats or fish, that you buy organic, that you buy sustainable, that you know where you're buying it from. and that you are sort of thinking about the type of protein that you're putting into your body.
Lovely.
So, yeah, so put those ingredients aside, and we're going to get our dough back out. And I'm going to put this board away. Just kind of clean off the counter as well, because you don't want any sort of bits of pizza, kind of tomato sauce or vegetables in your dough. I'm just going to give that counter a wipe. And then we're going to get our dough. Now this dough will make, if you divide it, it will make about 2 kind of good size pizzas. Or what you can do is you can cut it into 4. And you can see it's really soft. It's a really, really soft dough.
Look at that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really soft dough. And so what you can do is I'm going to get some, I like using semolina flour. So I have some semolina flour there. I think it adds a lot of nice crispiness to the pizza.
Yes.
So I'm going to put that a little bit on my counter.
Could you use polenta as well?
Polenta too, yeah. You could use cornmeal or polenta. You could use regular flour if you didn't want to use either of those. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut mine in half. And I'm going to make 2 kind of bigger pizzas.
Yes.
And right now I'll make one to show you guys, but I'll just put the other one aside to make later.
Yes.
And that's, you could do that as well. You could kind of make this and keep it in the fridge for a little bit. Put that back in the bowl and cover it so it doesn't get a skin. So then I'm going to just kind of shape that into a nice ball. And sprinkle some semolina on top. And then I'm going to kind of manipulate it with my hands as well. And just kind of pat it out. And then I'm going to get my rolling pin. 1 second. And also kind of use my rolling pin. And I may need to transfer this to a parchment paper so I can kind of work it easier. So if it's quite soft, so you can roll that, and it depends, like everyone likes their pizza a little bit differently. Some people like it quite thin, some people like it a little bit thicker, so you can do that. And I think we were talking about this before, Shanaz, about whether or not pizzas have to be round. And they don't. They can be whatever kind of shape you want them. They can be oval. It can be square if you want. This dough is quite soft, so sometimes it doesn't end up being round. So it is, I mean, it's pizza at the end of the day. So
exactly. We're going to tear it and share it, so it doesn't really matter, right?
Yeah, it's going to be, I think I'm going to get some parchment paper so that I can slide it out easily. And I can put the toppings on. So it is quite soft. It's tearing. Good. Get this out of the way. So the temperature, that's what you have to remember. The temperature is also quite funny.
Exactly.
So, oh. But actually, I'm going to bring it back together and roll it out because it is quite soft.
Yeah.
You can see that kind of the weather really reacts.
It has an effect, doesn't it? Definitely.
Yeah. It is quite soft today because of the temperature. So. And then if you do it on parchment paper, then it can slide easily back onto your tray.
Yeah, I can put it onto the stone easily. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're not greasing the stone or the paper, right? It's just.
I will drizzle a little bit of olive oil on top.
Yes.
But no, at the moment, no. I'm just kind of gonna do that. I might make it a bit thicker today. Come on, work with me.
Yeah, with in the bake-off tent when it's really warm, right?
Yeah. And sometimes it's easier to just manipulate with your hands.
Yeah.
Make it into the shape that you want. And it's fun to also kind of make smaller pizzas, get the kids to kind of make their own individual pizza, especially if you have, more than one kid and they each like different things, they can kind of pop it. And I find that with kids, I don't know about, other people's kids, but my kids, my son, actually, I have one son, he kind of will tend to eat more if he's making himself.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. They're invested in it then, aren't they? Because they've taken the time.
Yeah. And see, kind of just using my hands as opposed to a rolling pin, it's actually worked better today.
Yes.
Because it's quite soft and warm outside. So I have that. And then I'm going to kind of, what you should do is, how when you get pizza from a pizza place or something like that, you kind of have like sort of a grip on the pizza.
Oh, yes.
So what I'm doing is I'm going to just slowly fold over the edges of the pizza so that when it comes out of the oven, you sort of have it's sort of like raised a little bit on the outside.
Nice.
And then you can kind of have a sort of, when you slice it, you can grip it.
Fantastic. Lovely.
Yeah, and then what we're gonna do is we're gonna get our pizza sauce. Our tomato sauce. Just gonna give that a good mix. And now I don't like to overload my pizza with tomato sauce. I just kind of like a little bit, good amount. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put few spoonsful, and it smells already so nice with basil. The basil.
Yeah.
Basil.
And if people are not keen on the tomato sauce, they could make like a pesto or something like that.
You could even make just like a 3 cheese sauce. You could just just cheese. If you don't like tomatoes, you could use a pesto sauce. For sure. You don't have to use tomatoes. And I'm just kind of going to mix that around.
Lovely.
And just give that a good mix around. And so I'm going to make this one, I'll probably make this one vegetarian. And maybe the next one I make, I'll use the meat. Yeah. So I'm going to put some Parmesan cheese on mine. And I don't like to overload. I like it to be cheesy, but I don't like to overload it. When you get pizza and just a string of cheese. That's not my favorite. So, and then I'm gonna put that, and then I'm gonna put some of my mushrooms.
So now I always freak out that mushrooms are going to give so much water, and then I'm going to have a soggy pizza.
No, not really. Like you wouldn't. The amount of time it's going to bake here, it's not really going to make it. It's not. Really, I mean, you could cook them in advance if you wanted to, and just get out the mixture. But I haven't found that it's done too much. I know what you mean. When I do cook up mushrooms, there is a bit of water, so I see what you mean. But I haven't really had that sort of issue.
No, and because you put the Parmesan on first, I guess it's going to put some of that.
And I'm just going to put some broccoli on there. A bit of broccoli.
Amazing. You're going to have a delicious dinner for sure.
Yeah. My son loves, like all kids, most kids.
Yeah.
So just put a little bit of broccoli kind of around. I'm just going to grab the mozzarella from the fridge.
Yep.
So I have some organic mozzarella here.
Yes.
To use a scissor, not a knife like I just did, but to open it, and then just kind of drain out the water. And just squeeze out the water a bit from the mozzarella. And then you can sort of break that up into like little chunks. And put that onto your pizza and have some fresh mozzarella. And now there's already kind of salt and pepper in the dough and in this tomato sauce. So you shouldn't need more, but however, if you like pepper, and you want to add more pepper to it, then you can definitely do that. So that's my pizza, and I'm going to add a drizzle. I'm going to put this on the, I'm going to add a drizzle of olive oil onto this. Just a really, really small drizzle.
Yes.
So I don't risk drizzling too much. But, and remember, this oil kind of had some rosemary in it too.
Yes. So
that'll flavor it nicely. And then I'm going to get out my scone.
Just
what you
beautiful.
can do actually is what you can do is what might be a good idea actually is to let this pizza, once you put your toppings on it,
yes.
kind of let it rest. So yes. Just let it sit there, and because remember it's got some yeast in it. And what I actually normally do is I let it sit here for about 15 to 20 minutes.
Yes.
10, 15, 20. If you have the time. If you don't, you can put it in the oven right away, and that's absolutely fine too.
Yeah.
But what I like to do is I kind of like to leave it for 15 to 20 minutes and let it rise on its own with the toppings and everything, kind of get a little bit more bouncy. And then put it in the oven after that. So I think that's what I'm going to do. But what we can do is I can send pictures to you, Shanaz.
Yes.
Add the finished product, as well as, kind of all the added kind of ingredients and things like that.
That sounds fantastic. Yeah, we would love to see that. So we can see the before picture, and then you'll let it rest, and then you'll show us what it looks like.
Definitely, and you can always add a little bit more too. So I put the Parmesan cheese on the bottom. So you can a little bit more Parmesan cheese on the top. And also the other thing about using Parmesan cheese is it don't get that sort of stringy.
Yes.
Thing that cheese that some pizza places put on their cheese when you use mozzarella or grated mozzarella or cheddar, it'll kind of be a more subtle
taste. Oh, that's brilliant. That's taken pizza to a whole other level, and I'm so it's mouth-wateringly delicious. It looks
really like it. And let me know if you do use gluten-free flour to make this. Let me know how it comes together, because I've used some other recipes with gluten-free flour, but this one I haven't tried yet with the gluten-free flour. So it's nice to know how that works out.
Absolutely. I'll keep you posted. Thanks so much, Natasha, and thanks everyone.
And last minute, you could also make this vegan by using vegan cheese.
Yes.
Of course, you can always make this vegan and use vegan. There's lots of delicious vegan cheeses out there now.
Absolutely.
So that and use also some nutritional yeast.
Yes.
Parmesan alongside some of your other cheeses. So that's also a different way to kind of, make your pizza too.
That's it. So versatile and perfect for this lovely summery day. Thank you so much, Natasha. See you soon.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Take care. Bye for now.